welcome to another Rhodes Weekly webinar. Today's topic is going to be using the Objective-C Sync client to work with a RhoSync server. Here is the RhoSync client documentation. To get started, you add the RhoSync client project to your library, to your native Objective-C application. You copy the database files over in the copy bundle resources phase and add the following libraries to your project. Here is the RhoSync class definitions. Here is the ROM model class definitions and the RhoSync notify. And here's a very short sample of how to set it up and get things started. So that's the documentation for it. Let's open up a project and we'll walk through exactly how this store works. So we're in a store app that we created earlier, and we will open up our Xcode project. You can see we have, as a dependency, the sync client Xcode project, which is located in the RhoSync client folder. You can see the libraries we have added here. So let's take a look at our nib files here, because this is a Objective-C application. We'll open that up. We have our native controller, or our navigation controller rather, which has our login view controller, which also has our wait controller for a wait page as it's logging in. And then we have our view controller for a table view to display our records. So everything starts here in main.m, and we have a sync engine class, and we do a sync engine create. Because it's a singleton class, we need to initialize the instance of the sync engine. Next is the login view controller, which is loaded when the application starts. We check that the sync engine, if it is logged in, then we go directly to our index page, which, if you look in our header file, our index page is the root view controller. Otherwise, it's going to display the login page. Then it has two buttons on our login controller. If we take a look at the interface order, we have our login, our password, and the login button. The login button is connected to this action here, do login. So it sets our login state to in progress. It then puts the wait page, and then calls the sync engine to log in with your login and your password, and then provides a callback when login has been completed. And we can see our callback here, login complete. If there's an error, we set it to fail. Otherwise, we set it to logged in, and we tell our wait page that login has been completed. On our wait page, we have the first view did appear. So when the login controller puts the wait page to the top of the stack. You get the status wait, and if the login state is in progress, the animator starts spinning. You get a message working, and the back button is hidden. And otherwise, stop animating the controller. So then the next message it gets is when the login has finished. Login complete. You can see it stops the animator. If the state has become logged in, then you set the sync notification to sync complete, and then trigger a sync. Otherwise, display the error page. On sync complete, when you have a notification, it can be progressing, or it can be an error, or complete. We're only handling complete here, and so when sync is finished, it now changes the view to the home page, which is the root view controller, and does animated, and then clears the notification. So there's a lot of stuff going on around logging here. Let's take a look at our sync engine class to see how that's calling our sync methods. Init here is where all of the setup work happens. So our application has two models. We have customers and we have products. So the first thing we're doing is initializing the database into the RhoSync client. We're now creating two models. We're creating the customer model and the product model. Finally, we create the sync client. Then we add the two models that we have created to our sync client. Finally, we set our sync server URL and enable threaded mode. So this is all the setup. Basically we have two models and initialize the sync engine with our sync URL here to this sync server. And that's all there is in our sync engine class. It just does our setup and preparation. All of the other calls are directly to the RhoSync client. So the sync all, the do login, all of that was called directly. So that's all the steps you need to do to log into a sync server and begin the sync. And when the sync is completed, you get the notification that you have the data. And so now we're going to demonstrate on how to search the models and pull out information, which is what we do in our root view controller. Our root view controller is also the delegate for our table view, which means when the table view is running, it's how all the data is loaded through calling methods in this class. And we can see if the view did load, the data source, the delegate, so if somebody clicks the button, this is the method that gets called. So we can see on the screen right now, our view did load. All it does is, if the level is 0, have a home for the title, and hide the back button. Otherwise, set it to the current title, which is a class variable, or sorry, instance variable. So to get the number of sections in the table view, we're always going to return 1. So we only have one section. AR items here initially is set to product.findAll if it does not exist. So the first time it's initialized, we have already completed the sync and then said view the table view, and then when the view loads, it tries to get the count of the items. So the first time we're going to do a find all on our sync engine product. And product is the model in our sync engine class, the model that we created. It's a ROM model. And if we look at the documentation here, here is our ROM model, and we have a method here, find all. And finally, we then return the count here. The next method is called gets a cell for each of the items. So when it does the first find, it populates all of your results as dictionaries located in an array. And so we check that the AR items is a mutable array, which means it's an array of items. And when you're calling find all, you will always get an array. Then we get a cell, which is just a generic cell in this case. And we configure the cell by saying get the AR items, object at index, whatever row was passed in. And then the label on that cell is going to be the name. And finally we have the delegate here, is what happens if it gets clicked. So this checks if AR items is a mutable array again. If it is, it copies out the dictionary, gets the reference to the dictionary of the index at whatever row was clicked on. It creates a new root view controller with a new nib. And so basically what we're doing is creating another table view. We increment the level of the new one and set the title of it to be the name of whatever was in that dictionary. And finally, we push that new view onto the stack in an animated fashion. We also set the controller's AR items to a dictionary. So now, instead of a mutable array, in this new table, it's going to have the dictionary, which is the item. So this is what we're doing is, when you click on an item in the list, it's going to create a new table view that's going to display all of the property values in that list. And so if we go back to our cell here, you can see it's checking if it's a mutable array, which means it's the top level index that has the array of items. If it is a dictionary, it is the individual items, and so now it's going to go through and create a label with the name and the tag, or sorry, the name and the text from that dictionary. So we have a custom cell that we've created that has two fields in it. Those two fields, the first field we're going to set to be the key, since we're getting all the keys for that item. And then we're getting the text for that key as well. So that's what our Objective-C application is going to do. We're going to connect to our backend data source, display a list of the items, and then allow you to select an item and see all of the properties for that item. So we're going to go ahead and build and run this now. And we're presented with our login page. So I'm going to log in as Brian with no password. You see it's connecting to our data source and has synced our items. We select an item, and now it displays all of the properties for those items. And so what we'll do is we'll look at our data source here, which is our row store example. So we'll go to row store Heroku RhoSync.com. We can take a look at our products. And you can see we have our product here. This is Nexus 1 234 that has the price of $199. So that's integrating the sync server into an Objective-C application. Now we'll show you how that same sync server and that same source is used with a Roads application.